What's everybody? Welcome back to the WPC Plus. That's the weighted pod created, and I am Pierre Camus. With me is Nicholas Gott, back once again to talk baseball. We had a little extended All Star break, if you will, right, Nick? Sometimes life just gets in the way, but we're back to talk baseball, and it feels pretty good.
Yeah, man, finally back. Been a while. See, since we last talked, your home state of Texas lost power a few times, and you went on vacation a
Yep.
few times. I bought one house, but it feels like a few times. But now we are finally back.
Back, and we're gonna actually talk about some players who have been underperforming to straight busts who we think will keep busting. So at this point, you kind of have to make some hard decisions. The trade deadline is actually just around the corner as we're recording this. So a lot of movement's going to happen. But a lot of times, the players who've been, staying put in the same situation, nothing changes. You think, well, sometimes you think, well, the light's just going to go on, right? In the second half, that break is going to do them some good, and they're going to get a boost because they added X player or whatever. And sometimes it just doesn't happen. So we want to help you make the right decisions because at this point it's crunch time for fantasy leagues. So let's take a look at some guys who have been underperforming based on ADP and why we think they're going to keep underperforming. You know what? Before the fantasy trade deadline, you might want to move these guys. Yeah, there's such a thing as selling low. Sometimes it's better to sell and just get them off your roster. All right, so let's start with pitchers today. Talk to me about Blake Snell because he's a guy who preseason is always kind of in that Cy Young conversation. We've seen what he can do, but not in San Diego for a full season. And so far it hasn't been good. You think he's got the pedigree, he's got the favorable team context for sure. Oh, what has been his issue, and why do you think he struggled so much this year?
uh Wild inconsistency for one thing. He was the walks are back. It dropped off for a couple years. Now they're back to 14% right now. Still a lot of strikeouts. He's still in like a 29% strikeout rate, but peak Blake Snell was 31, 32% K rate. So less strikeouts, more walks, highly inefficient with his pitches. So he's always kind of struggled with that. Getting deep into games, and that's really reared its head this year. And so yeah, it has been he's had, like, he'll have some starts, like he's coming off a really good start. I mean, it was against Miami though, so when you shut out Miami for 6 innings, it's like, it doesn't
It
count
doesn't count.
quite as much. So yeah, he's had a lot of issues, and I'm glad I don't really have any exposure to him this year.
Yeah, actually, I don't either. I've always been a little wary. He had that breakout season. Like you said, the walk rate all of a sudden was cut in half. He'd never been a guy who was really, known for his command, and so then there were some people who were a little skeptical because when you make that big a leap, right, you think, well, maybe he goes back to his old ways. That seems to be the case. And one thing that's concerning that since May 1st, his ERA has been 5.28. It's actually been getting worse, not better, since the very beginning of the season. Sometimes, guys get off to a rough start. The first couple of starts are just, especially this year, right? The craziness of this year, just getting back into the rhythm of things, kind of weird off season. But yeah, so he is slightly underperforming as far as ERA versus his Sierra. So his ERA of 4.93, at least as of right now, not good. His Sierra is lower, but it's not that big a difference that you can say, oh, well, look, it's a whole run or two lower. It's 4.41, so it's really not that good, right? 4.41 for a guy that you drafted in the top 40, a lot of times, not good enough. But do you think that he's worth trying to deal away if you're a fantasy manager and you have Snell? Do you think he's going to actually keep hurting you more, or do you think the strikeouts are worth it to hold on to him?
No, not for me. I mean, if you can get something for, like, that's the thing. It's like, what can you get for him? You can probably still get something for him. I mean, said he just came off of 3 out of his past 4 starts have been pretty decent. Granted, he is only going 4 or 5 innings in a couple of them, but the strikeout rate's good. But He doesn't go deep enough games to, count on a lot of wins. So, he has 4 wins right now. I don't expect that total to be going up. And then looking at his ratios, he has a 1.56 whip, which is just absolutely terrible. And like we talked about the command already. Like, I don't think the command's improving. I don't think the walk rate's going to drop precipitously. So, and he's getting hit a lot. So I don't think the whip's going to improve. And then the ERA is already terrible at 4.93. And a 4.0 xFIP and a 4.41 Sierra, like those are great. Great as far as compared to his ERA, but they're still bad. Like Blake Snell with a 4.41 ERA, if you swap in his Sierra, like that's still bad. Like with a 1.5 whip and not getting deep enough into games to be eligible for a win. So yeah, if you can get something for Blake Snell, I would.
Yeah, and that's actually a good point too. Obviously the Padres got him because they're World Series contender, and they're probably going to want to keep him healthy, based especially on what happened to them last year. Those arms just falling apart. So they're going all in, getting guys like him and Darvish. They're going to want to preserve him for the postseason. So yeah, we're not going to see him stretched out too far, I don't think either. So that's another good point. All right, let's move on to Kenta Maeda, guy I know you were super high on in the preseason. No reason not to be. I mean, what could go wrong with Kenta Maeda? But everything's gone wrong with Kenta Maeda. He's
Everything.
looking a little better lately, but you did, point out a really big caveat to that. That he does play in the Central Division, and it's still no good for offense a lot of times. But what do you think? What's the deal with Maeda? I mean, there's really no reason that he should have struggled this year. He didn't switch teams like Snell or anything like that. Yeah, the Twins are bad, but that's mainly on offense, and that shouldn't affect his performance. So what's the deal with him?
Yeah, he has just been, you know, he's been better lately. Like he started off just really bad, like not just wasn't getting deep into games, giving up a lot of runs. The strikeouts were not there at all. Like just looking at his games log here, like he has multiple games of 1, 2, and 3 strikeouts. That is not what you were expecting when you drafted Kenta Maeda. Like you said, I was pretty high on him. I have him on a few teams, so this has been highly disappointing. But as far as like you mentioned the strength of his opponents, and once again, like with Snell got his last start was good, but it was against the Marlins, and Maeda's had 3 out of his past 5 starts he's allowed 0 or 1 earned run, but 3 of those games are against Detroit twice and Kansas City once, so you don't know exactly what you're getting out of that. So that's not encouraged. Also, not encouraged is the Twins are just shipping things away. I don't think they're probably done dealing. So that they're obviously packing in, and that you don't really want to buy Maeda getting a bunch more wins, and I don't think the ratios are going to improve either. He's got a 4.4 ERA right now and a 4.07 FIP. And his Sierra and xFIP are both around 4 too. So just the K's are way down, and I don't think they're coming back enough this year. I mean, it's not just his K rate to down. 25% right now. Is 32% last year. But his swing strike rate is, this isn't a case of where he's still getting a whole bunch of whiffs, but he's just not getting the strikeouts. Like his swing strike rate is 13.7%, down from over 17% last year. So now, same kind of thing. Like I'd much rather have Kenta Maeda than Blake Snell, but also like I'm not counting on Maeda to just like, I think he'll be a top 50 starting pitcher, the rest of the way. But I wouldn't count on him like turning it back around and being that top 15, top 20 guy that you were drafting him for.
Yeah, I mean, just to hear how low the bar has gone. Top 50 starting pitcher. He was a top 50 draft pick, overall pick, this year in the preseason. So, yeah, yeah. Sometimes the ones you think are the safest are not. And the only unfortunate thing, I guess, if you want to look at the positive is, well, he still, unless he gets traded, which I don't think he will be, he'll still be in the Central, so he get to face maybe the Tigers and the Indians and all those teams again. It's just too bad he can't face the Twins lineup, right? Because that would be even better for him.
Yeah. Right.
And then a name well, this guy was not drafted too high because of injury coming into the season, but a lot of people thought, oh, it might be a sneaky value, a nice pickup once he comes back mid-season. That's Tony Gonsolin, who's been lights out, and all the StatCast metrics have loved him the last couple of years. And we kept saying, if only he just had a regular rotation spot. And lo and behold, every Dodgers player and pitcher, especially, has now been getting hurt, and Gonsolin has just not been good. Hard to explain too. Maybe he's not 100% healthy, but I don't know. Why is Gonsolin also underachieving? Why do you think he's not going to bounce back?
So like with Gonsolin, like the strikeouts are fine. Like he still has 28% K rate right now, and he has a really good ERA, a 2.38 ERA. But the evaluators say that is a lot of luck in there. I mean, he's got a 4.12 FIP, a 4.75 xFIP, a 4.58 Sierra, and kind of like with Snell, it's a lot of it starts with the walks. He's got a 14.3% walk rate after a 4% last year and a 9% the year previous. So that 1.35 WHIP is just absolutely killing his overall fantasy value. So, ERA is good, but it looks like that's on its way up. Strikeouts are good. I think those are going to stick around the until he gets the walk rate under control. Like the WHIP's not going anywhere. And once again, like Snell, like he does not get deep enough into games to even have a chance of a win. He's looking at his game logs. He's gone 5 innings twice out of his 8 starts. So you only pitch 3 or 4 innings, like you're not going to get a lot of wins, and you're even if your strikeout rate is really high, if you're not facing as many batters, it's like your net gain there is just struggling. And that's what we're seeing with Gonsolin. Like you look at that ERA and you're like, all right, like he's giving me some fantasy value, but that's the only thing he's giving you. And looking at the evaluators, it looks like that's on its way up. So yeah, I wouldn't be counting on a lot of good things from Gonsolin as far as the overall fantasy package.
Yeah, and when you say bust, obviously that's a very loosely thrown around term, and the definition of bust depends on who has him on your team. But with Gonsolin, yeah, you look at the ERA, it actually isn't too bad. But I look at his Sierra, and I just have a habit of doing that. I look at Sierra before ERA, and it's double, almost of what his ERA is. He should be doing a lot worse. But when you have one ratio that is good and the other one is kind of bad, like a 1.35 WHIP, it kind of cancel each other out, right? He's not really helping you if he's hurting you in the other sense. So, and then there's a lot of kind of smoke and mirrors there, because I mean that ERA looks great, but over 34 innings, I mean, how much is that really helping your team? So that's another point where I would say maybe you don't call him a bust because maybe you didn't draft him too high or you didn't pay a lot to get him. But disappointment. I'll just say it's a little disappointing because the expectation for him was that he could be a kind of a breakout guy, a nice value, and it just hasn't panned out.
Yeah, especially on he was his draft price wasn't anything crazy, but when as far as fab dollars spent on Gonsolin and pickups like that, like he was very popular. Like there were high hopes for him. Like I didn't even try to get him on a couple places because I knew I'd be outbid.
There you go. It's all about expectation. And, as a Dodgers pitcher, you'd expect a lot. But, yeah, we're going to talk about some other Dodgers when we do the hitter version of this. Talk about busts who will keep busting. I have a very special name in mind. Yeah, rhymes with Rhodey, but we'll see. All right, so that does it for this edition. Check out our other video. We talk about some busts who might not be worth keeping around on your team. Thanks for watching, guys.
Thanks.